Now.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Cabinet meeting of Monday, the 18th of January 2021. Welcome everybody to the meeting. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Members of the public are able to hear and view the papers displayed during the broadcast of the meeting. This meeting is being held using remote technology, and should any Cabinet members experience technical difficulties during the meeting, they should immediately contact the telephone number previously provided. Councillors are requested to mute their microphones unless asked to speak. The chat function may be used to indicate the desire to speak. As leader, I will interpret the Council's existing standing orders in light of the requirements of remote participation, with advice from the monitoring officer prior to making a ruling. At the start of the meeting, I will ask members of the Cabinet to confirm their presence and interests. I will ask everyone that speaks during the meeting, including members of the Cabinet, group leaders or officers, to introduce themselves before they speak. Right, thank you. Right, we move on. Item 1 is apologies. I'm not aware of any apologies.
I've not received any apologies, Leader.
Okay, thank you. So item 2 is the roll call, and members will be expected to declare any interest during the roll call that they may have. So I'll read them out in alphabetical order. Gwilym Butler.
In attendance, Leader, no pecuniary interests.
Right, Lee Chapman.
Present and no pecuniary interests, Leader.
Steve Charmley.
Yeah, present, Leader, no pecuniary interest.
Dean Carroll.
Present, Leader, no pecuniary interests.
Steve Davenport.
Yes, present, no pecuniary interest.
Robert Macy.
Present, no pecuniary interest.
David Minery.
Present, no pecuniary interests.
Leslie Picton.
Present, Leader, and I have an interest in item 9, and I will be leaving the meeting and will rejoin once that item is concluded.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Ed Potter.
Present, no pecuniary interest.
The group leaders, Alan Mosley.
Present, no relevant interest.
Pauline D. Now, Pauline has been poorly, so we probably ought to put her down as an apology. And we hope she gets better soon. We wish her well. Councillor Roger Evans.
Present, no pecuniary interests.
Right. Now I've got some members who've indicated they may attend to speak. So I've got Councillor Ed Bird. No, he did indicate he might want his question read out for him. Councillor David Vasmer.
Present.
And Councillor David Turner.
Present.
Okay, thanks. I don't think they need to confirm it, but the officers in attendance are Mark Barrow, Director of Place, Andy Begley, Chief Executive, Karen Bradshaw, Director of Children's Services, James Walton, Interim Executive Director of Resources, Claire Porter, Director of Legal and Democratic Services, Amanda Hollyoak, Committee Officer, and I don't think we've put Tanya Miles on the list. We need to revise the list so that Tanya Miles, the Director of Adult Services, is included.
I am present, Leader, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Right, so if we move on, item 3 is the minutes, and I will move that the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 7th of December and 14th of December 2020 are circulated with the agenda papers be signed as a correct record. And I'm going to ask Councillor Steve Charmley to second that.
Yeah, happy to second that, Leader.
As far as I'm aware, there's no issues with the minutes, so unless anybody says different, we'll assume they're okay. So is everybody okay with that? Nobody's indicated. Right, so public questions. And now we do have a couple of public questions. The first public question is from Rob Wilson. I don't know whether Mr. Wilson is here.
Leader, it's Claire Porter speaking. No, we read the questions out for the members of the public. They don't join this meeting. Yeah.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Leader. This is, as I say, from Mr. Rob Wilson. Later at this meeting, you will discuss the Big Town Plan Master Plan vision. It states that, in quotes, implementing a series of measures focusing on different modes of transport to reduce private car traffic through the town centre, close quotes, will, in quotes, create the opportunity to change the use of space in the town centre, close quote. That being the case, it seems counterintuitive that the current range of traffic measures in the town have been suspended for the latest lockdown. Please can you explain why this has happened? Can you commit to them being reinstated when restrictions are lifted? Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. So I'm going to ask Councillor Steve Davenport to respond. Steve?
Yes. Hello, Rob. In response to the question relating to social distancing measures, the measures have been removed for the lockdown period in Shrewsbury and Ludlow. Other static measures, such as wider footpaths, etc., in our towns have remained. These are key interventions which close roads and redirect traffic and cause concern for some residents, but predominantly to provide support and social distancing for pedestrians and other users of the high street. The removal of the social distancing measures was based upon government's stay-at-home measures, and the footfall has reduced. The social distancing measures are funded from central government designed to support and encourage people to return to the high streets. Established data from the Springboard, which provides accepted data on impacts within town centres, has stated that perceived safety social distancing is a key issue for returning to the high streets, as are other issues, i.e. car parking fees. This information was recently reported to last year's scrutiny committee. So the measures are there to encourage the use of the high streets, to ensure our local economics are funded for that purpose, and from central government. Shropshire Council is monitoring our town centres with partners, i.e. Shrewsbury Recovery Task Force, and once the lockdown ends, the social distancing measures will undoubtedly return to our town centres to support and encourage activity in our high streets. And when appropriately, obviously the available guidance for this period is not available yet, but there seems to be little doubt that these measures should return to support our town centres to encourage economic revival when appropriate, as this is what the measures are designed to achieve. Thank you very much.
OK, thank you, Steve. Now we move on to question 2 from Graham Tate. So I'm going to ask Claire Porter to read out the questions. Claire.
Thank you, Leader. As you say, this is a question from Mr. Graham Tate. This question is, Conservative-controlled Lincolnshire County Council have announced a general council tax increase of 1.99% for the financial year 2021 to 2022. Can we expect a similar increase for Shropshire Council tax? Thank you.
OK, thank you. I'll respond to this. Full council will approve the increase in council tax at the council meeting on the 25th of February 2021 as part of the Council Tax Resolution 2021-22 report. The recommendation of officers and built into our financial strategy is for a general increase of 1.99%, the maximum allowed. We need to carefully consider the impact of increases in council tax on our households in these difficult times, against the need to fund essential services for the most vulnerable in our communities. The financial impact of which is growing at a rate far in excess of the council tax increase officers have assumed. Until February Council, however, no decision will be formally taken. I also have to add that Lincolnshire County Council is not a unitary council in the way Shropshire is, and the council tax there is treated completely differently. Thank you. So that's that question. Now there are some questions from members. So I think the first question is from Councillor Ed Bird. So I'm going to ask Claire Porter if she can read that out. Claire?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Councillor Ed Bird's question is, Regarding the Regulation 19 pre-submission draft of Shropshire Local Plan 2016 to 2038, I would like to reiterate the points made in the letter addressed to Edward West, Principal Planning Policy Officer at Shropshire Council from Shifnal Town Council, and ask the Cabinet that given the current COVID restrictions and limited accessibility to documents for large groups of the population, that the Council reconsider the consultation period. I would also draw attention to the Town Council's previous responses to the consultation, which I support, which oppose the high housing growth figures for Shifnal and the serious concerns that myself and a large number of residents have around the use of Greenbelt in which Shifnal is clearly situated. Residents have already seen new housing estates developed recently in Shifnal and have expressed the view that they wish Shifnal to retain its current character. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. So I'm going to ask Councillor Robert Macy to respond. Rob, are you around?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Apologies, this is a bit of a lengthy response, but as you can imagine with the local plan, they tend to be. The Council are particularly mindful of ensuring that everyone has a fair opportunity to engage with the local plan process, including as part of the current Regulation 19 consultation into the local plan, which began on the 18th of December. On this basis, it has been appropriate for the Council to review the consultation procedure in light of the new lockdown restrictions which came into force on the 5th of January, and in particular in light of the closure of more limited access to library services. In line with the Council's statement of community involvement and national legislation, the Council considers the electronic means of communication will continue to be the primary method of engagement on planning matters, including on statutory consultations such as the current local plan consultation. However, whilst the availability of consultation material in libraries is not required at this stage of plan preparation under the temporary amendments made to the Regulation 13 of the Town and Country Local Planning Act 2012, Shropshire Council nevertheless has sought to make copies available at our network of libraries for the duration of the current 7-week consultation. With this in mind, a review of the consultation arrangements has been undertaken to ensure that those without the ability to view and comment on the consultation documents electronically can still have a fair opportunity to engage in this process. It has been agreed that immediately the Council will offer on a limited basis paper copies of all or part of the Regulation 19 pre-submission plan document on request. The provision will be targeted only to those who do not have access to the internet. Information about this provision is being made available at library branches or will be sent to all town and parish councils, with a view for this information to be displayed on physical parish notice boards where practical. A press release will also be circulated. The Council will continue to keep under review whether any further action is required to support the current consultation in light of the current lockdown restrictions. The current consultation allows residents and other consultees to comment on the pre-submission version of the local plan on soundness and legal compliance issues. All duly made comments made to the Council will be considered. Whilst the Council only has limited scope to make minor modifications to the plan at this stage of the process, when the Council proceeds to the submission of the plan to Government, scheduled for April, subject to full Council approval, all the responses made to the Regulation 19 consultation will be sent to the Planning Inspectorate to inform the examination in public. It is this examination process where more significant changes to the plan, known as main modifications, can be made should the Planning Inspector consider them necessary to make the plan sound. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Rob. We move on now to a question from Councillor David Basmer. David, are you available?
Yes, thank you, Chair. In a recent article in the Shropshire Star, the Leader of the Council said that traffic in the loop will be reduced by 30% if the North West Relief Road is built. But traffic predictions for all roads within Shrewsbury's loop show there would be no reductions apart from Smithfield Road. What is the source of the Leader's 30% figure?
I'm going to ask the portfolio holder for highways to respond. So, Councillor Steve Davenport.
Yes. Hello, David. Significantly reducing the amount of unnecessary traffic crossing the town centre, thereby reducing congestion to create space to support sustainable modes of transport, remains a clear objective of the North West Relief Road and the ambition of the Big Town Plan. The forecast levels of traffic reduction are based on strategic traffic modelling, which has been independently reviewed and accepted by the Department of Transport and Highways England. The traffic model is refined throughout the project development, and latest update will be presented with the planning application due to be submitted in February. Thus the picture changes and the design is refined up to the planning submission. The public consultation for the North West Relief Road held in early 2020 included details of the road where traffic levels would change most significantly. Following opening of the new road, this identified that Smithfield Road would see one of the most significant reductions, with a traffic forecast to reduce by 27%. This was consistent with the previous modelling, which had identified with Smithfield Road as the main beneficiary of the North West Relief Road, which has been a catalyst to bring forward the new version for Shrewsbury. The North West Relief Road planning application will include more information for these routes, and based on the latest update of the traffic model, typically the traffic model will be used to assess the impact on the individual routes and roads, as there can be significant variation of benefit across the geographical area. However, Shrewsbury Town Centre has limited points of access, and the forecast traffic reductions are summarised below. And David, I've got a graph and figures which I'll forward on to you, varying from reduction of 38% to a notional increase of 1% in different times. So I will forward that on to you so you've got it. But I just want to add to that, really. We have to be ambitious, and there's no point in doing this without significant reductions in the town. And thank you very much.
Okay. Could I just have a supplementary, please, Peter? That'd be all right.
Yes, you can. Of course you can.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to ask Steve, don't you think that your commitment to the North West Relief Road is in direct contradiction of the council's climate change policy and its commitment to reduce CO2 emissions? Because both the building of the road will increase CO2 emissions. Increase in traffic will increase CO2 emissions. So don't you think you should be reviewing the building of the North West Relief Road on the basis of the commitment to reducing climate change? And
I think this road will reduce our carbon footprint. Clearly, we've got to build it, but going forward in generations to come, we'd like probably eventually to see zero in the town centre, but actually we've got to get there, and that would be the long-term way that this road can deliver this in the town centre. So I don't, and I think this is a great way, a positive way of, well, the only way actually that will happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, moving on. Item 6, scrutiny items. There are no scrutiny items. Item 7, Shropshire's Economic Response, Resilience, Recovery and Transformation Framework. I'm going to ask Councillor Steve Charmley, as portfolio holder, to introduce this item. Steve.
Thank you, Leader. It's a real catchy title. I appreciate, but the paper details the huge amount of work that's been done so far to deal with the economic challenges brought about by COVID and other challenges in the world, such as Brexit and digital connectivity, etc. The paper details all of the grant funding which we've paid out so far to well over 8,000 Shropshire businesses. And I appreciate that some businesses are still waiting for the most recent grant funding, but now we've had the government guidance that will be paid out forthwith. It's been a huge challenge to coordinate and then complete these grants, and I want to acknowledge the work that's been done by our officers to make this happen so far. However, the work is ongoing, and as I've already outlined, the challenges which the economy faces on the back of COVID is quite daunting. There's clear and obvious need for a framework such as this, which sets out the pathway for the county to follow for the next 5 years and beyond. We intend to utilise all the data which has been collected so far as part of the grant funding process and other incentives which we've been running for the last few years to bring about this pathway going forward. I don't think there's a lot more to say, but I really welcome this paper. It not only does it encapsulate all the work that's been done so far, but it sets out our stall going forward on exactly what it says in the title, a recovery and transformation framework. So I move the recommendations set out in 2.1 and look forward to working up the details in due course.
All right, thank you very much, Steve. As leader, I'm quite happy to second this report. There's an awful lot of work been going on all of the time, and we will be hopefully getting all the latest grant payments out in the next few days, but we've only just received the guidance on how they should work, and the guidance is different for these grants to previous grants. Right, I've got Councillor Roger Evans wishes to speak. Councillor Evans. Are you there, Roger?
Yes, I am, leader. Sorry, I was still muted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Join with the last two speakers. Congratulate the officers. This was not something that anybody wanted, and it is a huge amount of work that was carried out. Just 3 comments from myself. I note the delays in furloughing of staff at the start of the lockdown. I hope we can sort that out now for the future. I also note that Brexit is referenced in the paper, and there is a task and finish group which was formed to actually look into this, and I note that it hasn't met for 18 months, so I would hope that maybe the members on it can actually meet to look at how it's affected and how this council can help those businesses which are affected by the Brexit. And then lastly, I'll make a comment about the first part, and that was of the £9 million. We returned quite a lot back to, we returned almost £10 million back to government from the 91 million, which was a pity, maybe because of the bureaucracy that was around it, because of the government way it was doing it. But I would hope that maybe scrutiny or somebody can actually look into this to see if we can streamline it, should it ever happen again. May happen next year or 5 years, whichever. I think the lessons we've learned from it need to be encompassed and actually taken forward. I see it's 89.3% of it was delivered to residents, but I noticed that Herefordshire delivered 97% of their grant under this title. So maybe we need to look to see how better we can actually do it, because it's our businesses and our residents who need that help that we all want to give them. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, can I stress, everybody who was entitled to the grant received it. It was nobody who was entitled had a problem. So everybody who was entitled to money received it. It was just the government sent us too much. But I've got Councillor David Minnery and Gwilym Butler who wish to speak on this, and I think they probably have got the details better than me. So we'll start with Councillor David Minnery.
Yes, thank you, Leader. It's very simple, actually, Roger. The government, in deciding how much money to send us last year, took account of all of the businesses within Shropshire and made their calculations and based on that and sent the money to us. What they failed to take into account, though, was the number of businesses in Shropshire that are branches of others, and the money was intended for Shropshire-based, Shropshire-owned, Shropshire-run businesses. It was never intended to bail out the multinationals, and because of that, the government's calculation exceeded the amount that was actually going to be needed to meet the requirements of all of the Shropshire-based businesses. It was as simple as that. It was a government over-calculation rather than people not applying who should have done, or the council not contacting the people who were eligible for it.
Okay, thank you, David. So Councillor Gwilym Butler is next. Gwilym?
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to comment on Councillor Evans' issue regarding Brexit. Just to advise him that I took up the opportunity in my portfolio review this morning in respect of trading standards, environmental health and licensing, etc., and can report that on that side of things there has been no red flag issues to date. So pleased to report that. However, it is noted that there is still an awful lot of detail to go through and negotiations on the nitty-gritty are still ongoing for businesses. Thanks very much.
Okay. I have to say it's a difficult time for councillor officers. They're having to deal with lots of different issues, and so far I think they've dealt with them brilliantly. So I give my support to the council officers. Right, anybody else wish to speak? Nobody's indicating. Right, so there is a recommendation 2 of the report, 2.1, and it's basically supporting the principles set out in the report. So unless anybody indicates differently, I'm going to assume we accept the recommendations. Nobody seems to be saying anything differently, so those recommendations are accepted and will be adopted. We move on now to item 8, which is housing strategy. I'm going to invite Councillor Rob Macy as the portfolio for housing and strategic planning to explain the purpose of the item. Rob.
Okay, thank you, Leader. Recent events have highlighted to many, more so than ever, the importance of having the right home in the right place. As many people are spending more time at home, including continuation of home working for many, our homes offer more than just a roof over our head, but provide a place where we can hopefully feel safe and we can give and receive support from our neighbours and be part of our wider community. For most people, a decent home is central to our well-being. This thread runs throughout our work in housing across the council and extends to many of our partners. Our vision for this strategy, that all homes are well-designed, decent homes of high quality, which will protect Shropshire's unique urban and rural environments and ensure that it is a great place to live, that all Shropshire residents have access to the right home in the right place to support and promote their health and well-being throughout their lives, will help drive the efforts and progress being made on many fronts to address what the government identified as a broken housing market in our country. Whilst we have a variety of direct initiatives, we also need help from our many partners in the delivery of housing. The 6 specific objectives in the strategy covering addressing current and future housing need, ensuring unmet need is addressed, preventing homelessness, increasing the mix of housing options, minimising environmental impact, and ensuring housing supply attracts and retains a local workforce will allow us to work towards this vision. In August of last year, we consulted on the draft version of this strategy and received responses from a wide range of respondents, including residents, parish councils, businesses, and the voluntary sector. As you'll note from the report, the responses have informed several amendments to the strategy, specifically the wording of its objectives. I hope you'll agree that these have served to strengthen these and give more of a sense of urgency. An action plan will identify individual actions aligned to each objective and whose responsibility it will be to deliver and over what time frame. Progress on the action plan will be reported annually to the Scrutiny in Place Overview Committee. It is important that this council promotes the strategy in order to harness any help from others in achieving these important goals for our county. It will be circulated widely upon its adoption. So simply the report asks a single recommendation that Cabinet adopts this strategy as listed in the report. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Rob. I'm going to ask Councillor Steve Charmley to second it. Steve?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, happy to second this. I think it's a very good paper and I certainly welcome it and its use going forward.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Alan Mosley next. Alan.
Obviously, support the report and the policy. There's fine words within it. However, on page 19, there's a pretty disastrous chart which shows the way in which our proportion of homeless households has changed over the last 10 years, and it clearly is a pretty disastrous picture. It shows that we are now around and about the national average, whereas for the last 6 or 7 years we've been significantly below it. And the rise in Shropshire has been very great at a time when the national picture has been static, or indeed in the last period in reduction. Now clearly this shows great amounts of deprivation for families and individuals. It shows the harm that can be done by homelessness for families and individuals. It represents massive worry and concern on large numbers of individuals, and a major impact on social deprivation, on health and well-being for those concerned. Can you please point out how this strategy is going to turn that round, and how we are going to investigate why Shropshire's homelessness has increased so significantly in recent years? This is particularly under your watch, Peter, because it was 2017-2018 when there was this large increase. So I'd be interested in your comments.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Well, actually, I think this is a really good document. I think the council have made tremendous efforts to sort out the housing in Shropshire. We've set up Cornovy Housing, which will be providing lots and lots of extra units, both social and cheaper parts of the market. And Star Housing is very active at the moment as well. So we are doing lots, and you will be aware of the government initiative about rough sleepers over the last few months, which has meant we've put many of them in hotels, and everybody has been offered accommodation. So, you know, the idea that we're not doing anything is nonsense, but the demand has increased. It's partly, I believe, because Shropshire does look after homelessness and rough sleepers too well, and it actually attracts people to the county because of that. But we're dealing with it, and I believe once this housing strategy is implemented, and certainly given Cornovy the next 12-18 months to deliver some of what they're promising, we will be in a much better place. But it is mostly, I believe, outside demand on the county rather than internal demand. Right, but I'm going to ask Rob Macy to comment. Rob?
Hi, thank you, Leader. I think if you look at the strategy itself, obviously the strategy is one of the big pushes for doing this as well, and it's identified as a clear objective, is to prevent homelessness. From our point of view, as you can see from the graph you referred to, the numbers have gone through a cycle from 2010. We've done an excellent job keeping them down. I think the fact that the government introduced new legislation of the Homeless Reduction Act in 2017 points to the fact that this is not a Shropshire problem as such. This is a national issue which they've moved to act on. From our point of view locally, obviously last year at July Council, I believe it was, we approved funding and new mechanisms for the securing temporary accommodation. All of this alongside the other things we're doing with registered providers and Star Housing included within those as the council ALMO, all help to address this. We agree there's more to do. There's always more to do. As Peter has said, the pandemic has actually led to a number of situations where numbers have increased in temporary accommodation. The government at the start of the pandemic did the process of everyone in. At that point, as far as we're aware, those we were aware of, everybody was in the process. You've heard me talk previously about the fact that there's been a great amount of learning from being able to do that and working with the many other partners we've got. A lot of that is being carried forward. It gave us a real opportunity to engage with those people in a different way over an extended period. And I think we've got, as you can see from further on down in that objective, there are a number of opportunities where we can work further to reduce homelessness, and we continue to do so.
Okay, thank you, Rob. I'll let Alan come back first, and then I've got Councillor Roger Evans. Alan?
I think it's unfortunate, Peter, that you are blaming homelessness and rough sleeping just on those who are homeless and sleeping rough. You say it's partly because we are treating them too well. I can assure you that those people who are homeless
I didn't say that.
I've
I said
spoken
Shropshire deals with homelessness better. I didn't say the actual people involved.
Well, you said you make it you make it too easy for them in a sense. That was the.
I never said that. You're trying to put words in my mouth, and that's not what was said at all.
The implication was that we were making the situation attractive to homeless and rough sleepers, and that's certainly not, and making it too easy for them, and that certainly is not what the homeless people are saying to me when they describe the difficulties.
Alan, if you do a survey of the homeless rough sleepers in Shrewsbury Town Centre, most of them originate from outside the county.
We're not talking about just about rough sleepers. The vast majority of the people who are homeless are not rough sleeping. They are homeless because of the circumstances that they find themselves in, and the numbers here in Shropshire have been increasing, whereas the number in England as a whole has declined over the last couple of sections in this chart. All authorities have had the same pressures by and large. All authorities have been affected by government legislation by and large, but we have bucked the trend, so that whereas homelessness, the number of homeless households has declined in England as a whole, in Shropshire it has increased very rapidly in recent years.
Okay, Councillor Roger Evans.
Thank you, Peter. Picking up the same theme, I think it's a good strategy, but it'll be the action plan that I want to see, and I see it's only going to be reported annually. I'd like to see the action plan now, because I note within the report it states that there is 5,000 households on our waiting list at this moment in time, or when the report was written, and it also reports within it that we built on average just 340, sorry, we didn't build it, but there were provided just 343 affordable homes per year. That does need to be increased. That's where the action plan needs to be. But I also note that the number of empty homes, which I referred to a number of times in previous years, it notes that there were 1,700 empty homes when this report was done, 600 more than 2 years. That's almost twice as many new affordable homes that were built have now been empty for more than 6 years. I've got some in my patch, which I've been talking about for 20 years, that have been there empty. I would like to see an action plan and a big mention in this about returning empty homes back into use, back into service. It's the social problems that's caused by it, but those extra homes are already there. We, this council, can actually take action if it chooses to start to return some of those houses back into use and actually provide homes for some of those 5,000 which are on our housing list. Thank you.
Okay, right, well, we'll move on. I've got nobody else indicating to speak. So, Councillor Rob Macy, do you want to come back at all?
Yeah, Leader, I think I thank the fact that both of them are referring to they support the strategy. I take Roger's point that the action plan will be all important, and the point of it being on an annual basis is that it is kept there and it is kept in the limelight. There is the opportunity. Both leaders turn up at Cabinet a lot of the time asking how will we scrutinise this and track progress and so on. So that's why we've built it into the strategy. What I would say is obviously we've got the main bones of the initial action plan, but we will be taking into consideration other things that have been raised, other people that are coming to us and so on. And when that's published, that again is there for scrutiny. The idea is it's a live document throughout the year. Certain things will be achieved, but that it comes back at least to a public forum through scrutiny to be looked at once a year. So from that perspective, I think that's the case. I mean, in terms of homelessness, as Alan alluded to, it's not just rough sleeping. There are a number of situations that cause homelessness. We do try and address them all. We have got a range of services, and our staff are very dedicated and hardworking in achieving those. So I think from that perspective, I think if you look at the opportunities we've identified, the objective we've got in the strategy, we've got a clear way forward of how we want to tackle those. So the more that the opposition and others get behind us, the easier and quicker hopefully that process will be over time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. There is a recommendation which is quite simple really. Cabinet is asked to approve the housing strategy 2020 to 2025. I can't see any indications of anybody wishing to speak, so unless anybody says anything differently, I think we'll confirm the recommendation. So I'll give you a few seconds. No, nobody's saying anything, so I now confirm that those recommendations are agreed. Right, we move on to item 9, Shrewsbury Big Town Plan, and we're back to Councillor Steve Chalmley. Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. The Big Town Plan has been in the making for a number of years now, and it's great to see that this is finally coming forward towards the end game. It's a result of collaborative working, including many of our councillors from across all the political spectrums. Key stakeholders have also had their input to create this vision and to shape the future of our county town. The vision has been developed following working with a number of urban designers, regeneration and movement experts who have had their input into this document. The vision is exactly what it says on the tin. It is a vision for the future. The detail will obviously come at a later stage. We're asking people of Shropshire to make comment on the concepts which are being put forward within this paper. I believe that as a concept, this is great news for the county town and for the wider county. I appreciate that some of the areas may be a little bit too much for some people, but that's exactly why we're going out to consultation and requesting feedback on the document. The paper covers all of the Shrewsbury area and various sectors within it, which are clearly laid out within the document. I'm really looking forward to what people think of this paper, and obviously that is the key recommendation that we're putting forward. So with that, I move the recommendations laid out in 2.1 and 2.2, and no doubt you will have some comments to make as well, Leader. So with that, I move it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm quite happy to second this. As Steve was saying, this is quite a high-level visionary document. I know when people look at it, they will see some of the sketches and artwork and wonder exactly how they fit in. But it's creative, but it is designed to stimulate discussion about the future of the town. I think the biggest area where there will need to be a lot of talking is about movement, which is mainly about cycling, pedestrianisation and traffic, and how they all fit together. And I know Alan Mosley, who has been working on the document with me, will have something to say in a minute. But next on the list, I've got Councillor Roger Evans. So, Roger.
Thank you, Leader. I see it's the final draft for consultation. I can't support it, I'm sorry, but no. I see it's the local members are the Shrewsbury Town Councils, Shrewsbury Town Councillors, but I see under the stakeholders it does mention Shropshire residents, and I think there's been very little information come from Shropshire residents into this. I see the disappearance of the bus station. I see the building on the present car parks, which are all in the floodplains, is being proposed. I see it says that there is 446,000 square foot of office space. There's going to be 190,000 square foot of retail space, 120,000 square foot of commercial space in it. If we look at COVID and what's happened in the last 9 months, is this really practical for Shrewsbury to go down, or are we going to create a lot of empty offices which will not be used? It's 15 years to deliver. I see it's a 6-week and it says the 6-week will be a demonstrable engagement. Under the present conditions and where we are at present with the lockdown, 6 weeks is not demonstrable. It won't be able to. At libraries, people can't go in there to actually see it, anything like this. I see in it also reference about the Shire Hall disappearing and the Pride Hill become the new town centre base together with the Riverside. So it just does not make sense in this current climate to build in that number of extra offices and retail space when we've got a retail space in a shopping centre which is now likely to be converted to offices because there's no demand for retail. I think it really needs to be revisited in the light of what's happened in the last 9 months. Thank you, Chairman.
This is a consultation document and it is going out for consultation to hear what people have to say. I'm not surprised what you're saying. The Liberal Party have never supported the work towards improving Shrewsbury, and you're looking backwards all the time, and I'm not prepared to go down that road. I'm going to ask Alan Mosley to speak next.
Thank you. I don't know if Roger's actually taken the time to read the report and look at the report from 2018, which sanctioned the further work that's taken place on the Big Town Plan. I've been involved with it, as you say, Peter, with you and with the bid, but not only just that board, but also hundreds, if not thousands, of people who have contributed in various workshops and various consultation events, in various meetings over the last 3 years or so in putting this forward. I think Roger also needs to recognise, and anyone else, that this is not a plan per se, something that is likely to happen in this particular version. It is a vision that offers opportunities and offers alternatives about maintaining the vibrancy, the life and the prosperity of the town centre and areas around it, because it's not just the town centre. It goes out to Owy Foregate, it includes Frankwell. It particularly area that I'm interested in for obvious reasons goes up into the north of the town with the northern corridor. It's a vision for the next 20 years, and I think this will also, as the housing strategy will be updated and reported on progress on an annual basis, I think this will as well. There's going to be massive consultation. I think everybody ought to be encouraging people to get involved. It starts off with a festival of various presentations and an open virtual meetings that people on various issues surrounding the Big Town Plan, and that's over. Starts tomorrow and it goes on through the next fortnight, and then there's going to be the major consultation that's already been referred to. I'm not in favour of everything that's in it. I don't envisage that everything that's in it will by any shape, by anyone's imagination will be realised within those 20 years. But it is important that Shrewsbury is recognised as being the important county town that it is. Its influence and its success influences people, property and businesses well outside Shrewsbury throughout the town. It's very important that this is taken on board by the county as a whole, I think, and comments made upon it. Please, though, people should read this before commenting upon it and recognise it for what it is. It is a vision. It's not a plan that is going to be put in place in the next 6 months or a year or 2 years. It's a vision for the way in which Shrewsbury has to develop, evolve and grow for the next 20 years.
Roger's indicating he wants to come back, but it'll have to be quick, Roger. Roger?
Okay, this also assumes the Northwest Relief Road is going to be built, and we've got a climate emergency, which councils are doing.
Sorry, I want you to talk about the Big Town Plan, not the North.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am, but it's assumed. But we are doing away with the bus station. We're doing away and using the park and ride as a transfer for people wanting to use the town. Shrewsbury is important to Shropshire, but the people of Shropshire is also important to Shrewsbury. If the people in Shropshire do not come into Shrewsbury, Shrewsbury will die. And if there's no bus station and you're looking at the climate emergency, wanting to reduce the carbon and saying that people have to catch a bus into a park and ride site and then catch a bus from the park and ride site into the town, it is not going to happen. People will go elsewhere. We've got to make it encourage people to come into the town without the use of the car. Rapid transit, yes, but we need to look forward and look how the town has developed in the last 9 months and reflect that in the vision. And let's have a realistic vision for the next 20 years. Thank you.
Okay, I'm conscious you said you didn't support it, but I've got David Minery next. David?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I thought, as a non-Shrewsbury member and probably about as far away from Shrewsbury as anyone else is, I would just make a short contribution to say how impressed I am, actually, with the amount of work that's gone into this, and looking through the sort of brochure and the artist's illustrations and all the rest of it. And I absolutely don't agree that getting rid of the bus station is a bad thing. I think it's probably one of the best things that you could be contemplating doing. And I would stress, as others have stressed, that this is a consultation exercise, but I think on the whole it's got it absolutely right, and I'm looking forward to supporting it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move towards the recommendations, which are on the screen now, which is basically supporting it. That's as the final draft and taking it out to public consultation, and the officers report back in due course on the consultation. Right, nobody's indicating they wish to speak, so I'm going to assume that recommendation is agreed by everybody in Cabinet. Yeah, there's no indications differently, so that recommendation is confirmed and will be agreed. Right, now we next move on to item 10, and I keep saying this, Baraston Parish Meeting. Baraston, I don't think I'm saying that right, but I'm going to let Councillor Gwilym Butler introduce it because he lives around that end of the county. This is down towards Cleobury Mortimer. So, Gwilym.
Boriston, Leader.
I knew I was going to say it wrong. Yeah, sorry.
Don't worry. This is just Shropshire side of the border from Tenbury Wells on the way to Cleobury Mortimer. The residents of Boriston have secured funding from the Police and Crime Commissioner for the provision of decorative gates at the entrance to the village, which are intended to act as traffic calming measure. There is no parish council for the area to hold and spend the money for such purposes, so the parish meeting has resolved, in accordance with the Local Government Act 1972 section 109, to request that powers to hold the money for certain purposes are granted by Shropshire Council to deliver the project. Before I actually move the recommendation, I'd just like to congratulate Boriston Parish Meeting on taking this initiative and finding external funding. And I would urge all town and parish councils to look at the funding pot the Police and Crime Commissioner has for traffic calming measures within their communities. It is a really good pot of money and it has been spread out across the county. The recommendation which I would like to move is that Cabinet authorises the Director of Legal and Democratic Services to make an order under section 109 of the Local Government Act 1972, granting Boriston Parish Meeting the power to incur expenditure under section 137 of the Local Government Act 1972 for the installation of white village gates as a traffic calming measure. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to ask... Okay, I was going to ask Steve Damport to second it. Steve?
Yes, I'll second that. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's pretty straightforward. I can't notice any comments, and so I'm going to move to the recommendation and suggest we accept it unless anybody shouts out anything differently, which isn't happening. So right, that is agreed, and we will do that. Right, item 11, disposal of property at Wright and 11 Towns. Councillor Steve Charmley.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. The Yardley property was originally purchased for use by Educational Services. The property is now considered surplus to requirements, so we're just asking for permission to put it back on the market. And okay. I move recommendation 2122.
Okay, I'm quite happy to second that, and I do expect us to make a profit on the property. Right, again, nobody seems to be wanting to say anything, so unless there's somebody shouts quickly, we're going to accept the recommendations. Nobody's saying anything, so right, those recommendations are accepted. We move to item 12, which is the exclusion of the press and public in accordance with the provisions of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 and para 10.4 part 3 of the Council's Access to Information Rules. The public and press be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following items. So I'll move it. I'll ask Steve Charmley to second it.
Yeah, seconded, Leader.
Right, thank you. And again, unless anybody disagrees, we'll assume that's implemented. I can assure the public they're not going to miss much. We're only going to approve the minutes of the last meeting. So that's agreed. And we move on to item, hang on, 13,